Syrian Prime Minister agrees to hand over power to Syrian Salvation Government. South Korean President barred from leaving the country. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. I'm SAHIH Samsudin and welcome to World Today. Syrian Prime Minister Muhammad Ghazi Jalali has agreed to hand over power to the Syrian Salvation Government SSG, while opposition leader Muhammad al-Bashir has been tasked with forming a new Syrian government. The imminent transfer of power follows 13 years of civil war and the end to more than 50 years of rule by the Assad family, leaving Syrians at home and millions of refugees abroad hopeful yet deeply uncertain about their country's future. Oil prices rose more than 1% on Monday, partly on concerns that uncertainty in Syria, which is not a major oil producer, could raise regional instability. Damascus stirred to life on Monday, with traffic returning to streets and people venturing out after a nighttime curfew, but most shops remain shut. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey is ready to support the Syrian people in the process of rebuilding the country. Turkey also will open the border gate at Yakladagi to allow Syrians to return home safely. In a related development, the Kremlin said on Monday that it was too early to say what the future would hold for Russia's military bases in Syria, adding that it would be the subject of discussion with the new rulers in Damascus. After a lightning advance of an alliance spearheaded by Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham (HTS), Bashar al-Assad fled to Russia, raising questions about two strategically important Russian military facilities in Syria. Russia's Hemnim Air Base is located in Syria's Latakia province, a naval facility at Tartus on the coast. The Tartus facility in Russia's only Mediterranean repair and replenishment hub, and Moscow has used Syria as a staging post to fly its military contractors in and out of Africa. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed that Assad had been given asylum in Russia, saying the decision was made by President Vladimir Putin. Asked about a possible meeting between Putin and Assad, Peskov said none was currently in the official Kremlin schedule. More broadly, Peskov said the Kremlin saw a turbulent international situation with a high potential for conflict. Prime Minister of the illegitimate state Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is set to take the stand on Tuesday for the first time in his corruption trial that has dogged him for years, divided Israelis, and will now have him tied up in a court at a time of war and regional turmoil. Netanyahu has been on trial since 2020 for bribery, fraud and breach of trust, all of which he denies. Prosecutors allege Netanyahu granted regulatory favors worth around $500 million to Bezek Telecom Israel. Netanyahu has also been charged with fraud and breach of trust over allegations that he and his wife wrongfully received gifts from Anand Milchan, a Hollywood producer, and Australian billionaire businessman James Becker. Prosecutors said gifts include champagne and cigars, and that Netanyahu helped Milchan with his business interests. Netanyahu allegedly negotiated a deal with Anand Moses, owner of newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth, for better coverage in return for legislation to slow the growth of a rival newspaper. Netanyahu has been charged with fraud and breach of trust. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been barred from leaving the country over a failed attempt at imposing martial law. According to a Justice Ministry official, this comes on as demands for his resignation increase, plus an escalation in leadership crisis. Yoon has apologized for the botched attempt and said he was leaving his political and legal fate to his ruling People Power Party PPP, but has not resigned. The travel ban order has been executed and the police have launched a special team of around 150 investigators to handle the case. While Yoon survived an impeachment vote in Parliament on Saturday, his party's decision to delegate presidential authority to the Prime Minister has plunged the key United States ally into a constitutional crisis. On another matter, to ensure the safety of travellers to South Korea, the country's culture minister, Yoon In-chon, vowed to make efforts to ensure the safety of travellers, addressing concerns over the ongoing political turmoil. In-chon said the government will do its utmost for the safety and convenience of all visitors to the country. Vice Culture Minister Jang Min-ran also reassured that South Koreans are continuing their daily lives and that major tourist destinations remain fully operational. Taiwan raised its alert level on Monday, saying China had reserved airspace and deployed naval and coast guard vessels in what a security source called the first military drills across a broad swathe of the region's waters. Taiwan's Coast Guard said that 7 Chinese Coast Guard ships had been carrying out grey zone harassment against Taiwan since earlier in the day. Video and still images released by Taiwan's Coast Guard on Monday showed what it identified as Chinese Coast Guard vessels 2901 and 1301 out at sea, closely watched by Taiwan's Coast Guard personnel. According to a Taiwan security source, China currently has nearly 90 Navy and Coast Guard ships in waters near Taiwan, the southern Japanese island, and the East and South China Seas. Separately, Taiwan's military set up an emergency response center and raised its alert level on Monday, saying China has set up 7 zones of reserve airspace and dispatched naval fleets and Coast Guard boats to waters around the island. China, which claims democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, had been expected to launch another round of exercises in response to Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te's trip to the Pacific. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer visited Saudi Arabia on Monday, seeking stronger economic and defence ties with the country and the United Arab Emirates. During the multi-day visit to the Gulf, his first trip to the region since taking office, he met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the Royal Court in Riyadh. The United Kingdom government said in a statement that the Starmer has pledged to step up the country's engagement in West Asia to support long-term stability. Starmer has also agreed to bolster existing defence partnership between Britain and Saudi Arabia and promote greater defence industrial cooperation. Starmer has said UK economic growth was his number one mission as he defended his trip to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates from criticism. The two leaders also discussed Saudi Arabia's attempts to improve human rights in the country, despite it being a lower priority than the economy, as well as the situation in Gaza. On the fall of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, Starmer said the focus now was on talking to regional and global allies about the way forward. The Netherlands Migration Ministry, in a statement on Monday, said it will impose controls on its land borders, all of which are with fellow countries in the European Union's Schengen border-free zone and some flights from within the Schengen zone. The controls are set to last 6 months, part of a wider crackdown on migration by the PVV party of Geert Wilders. The Dutch Minister of Asylum and Migration, Marjolein Faber, who visited Aisden near the border with Belgium on Monday, said the controls follow similar moves by neighbouring Germany, which already suspended the freedom of the passport-free Schengen zone in September to tackle illegal immigration. Measures also include limiting asylum permits to a maximum of 3 years and restricting possibilities for asylum seekers who are allowed to stay to reunite with family members. These plans were already part of the agreement parties reached in July following Wilders' resounding election victory almost a year ago. However, it took the parties months to reach a compromise on the way forward, as Wilders insisted on declaring a national asylum crisis that would enable the government to bypass Parliament. Australia and Nauru on Monday signed a $100 million Australian dollar aid package to boost the Pacific Island nation's security, banking and telecommunications sector in a deal aimed at countering China's increasing influence in the Pacific. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Nauru's President David Ardeen said at a joint media briefing that the new deal prevents third countries from accessing Nauru's critical infrastructure for security purposes.
Australia will invest $40 million over 5 years to enhance Nauru's policing and security through support for recruitment, training and infrastructure. Recognising that the security of one of us affects the security of both of us, The treaty provides that Nauru and Australia will jointly agree to any engagement by other countries in Nauru's security, banking and telecommunications sectors.
Nauru, the world's third smallest country, in January switched diplomatic ties to China from Taiwan after China built a port and promised more aid, raising concerns in the West about China's ambitions in the Pacific region, where Australia and the United States traditionally have held sway. Still to come, police arrest men suspected of killing United Health executive. Stay tuned. Authorities in Altoona, Pennsylvania, yesterday arrested the man suspected of killing United Health executive Brian Thompson. The man was arrested following a brazen shooting outside a Manhattan hotel last week. Police said the suspect, identified as Luigi Maggioni, 26, was captured in the central Pennsylvania town after he was spotted eating at a McDonald's. He was arrested on firearm charges by Altoona police and was being arraigned. He will likely be extradited to New York at some point to face charges related to the murder. Maggioni was found with a ghost gun, a firearm assembled from parts, making it untraceable, and a silencer consistent with the weapon used to shoot Thompson. New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said, as well as clothing and a mask similar to those worn by the killer and the ghost gun may have been produced by a 3D printer. Maggioni, a Maryland native, had multiple fraudulent identifications, including a fake New Jersey ID that matched the one used by the gunman to check into a Manhattan hostel days before the shooting. 2 people died and 9 were injured, while 3 other people went missing after an explosion on Monday at a fuel depot facility near Florence, owned by Italian energy firm Eni. Regional health authorities said 3 of the wounded were in life-threatening condition. The explosion in Calanzano, on the northern outskirts of the Tuscan capital, occurred in an area where trucks load fuel to be taken to petrol stations. Other depots nearby were not affected. According to initial findings, a cloud of fuel vapor exploded, causing the fire and the collapse of a building at the site. The blaze, which produced a thick column of black smoke visible from a distance, prompted warnings for residents to stay away from the area and to seek shelter indoors. It was extinguished within an hour. Prosecutors in the nearby town of Prato said they would open an investigation to determine criminal responsibility for the accident, adding that police, forensic doctors and technical advisors were already involved. A passenger on board a domestic flight in Mexico attempted to divert the plane to the United States forcibly but was stopped by flight crew and passengers. Anadolu agency reported after being detained, the man allegedly confessed that the failed bid was triggered after a close relative of his was kidnapped and his life was threatened by criminals. On Sunday morning, Volaris, one of Mexico's main airlines, said that on Flight 3401 from central Mexico to the border city of Tijuana in Baja California, the 31-year-old man attempted to divert the plane to the United States through the use of force. He attacked a flight attendant and attempted to break into the cockpit and take control of the plane before being restrained. The plane made an emergency landing at Guadalajara International Airport, around 1,380 miles from its destination, where members of the United States National Guard were already waiting for him. The man was travelling with his wife and 2 children and could face 3 to 20 years in prison as authorities decided to press charges against him. Dozens of schools in Delhi received bomb threats on Monday, leading to authorities stepping up security and conducting initial searches on school premises. According to ANI news agency, 2 schools received the threats by email on Sunday night, which said multiple bombs were planted inside buildings and would be detonated if the sender was not paid $30,000. Additional Commissioner of Police Sanjay Tyagi said many other schools received the emails on Monday morning, prompting school authorities to call parents to take the students home for the day. Parents were seen picking their children up from the gates of some schools as police checked school premises for suspicious items. No bombs have been found yet, but police have not confirmed if the threats are fake. A spokesperson for the Delhi police told local media that they were working to trace the origin of the email and identify the sender. In May, more than 50 schools in Delhi and adjoining suburb of Noida received similar bomb threat emails that turned out to be hoaxes. 6 individuals involved in migrant smuggling were apprehended in a joint operation between Guatemalan and United States authorities. Guatemalan government reported the detainees were members of the criminal organization known as Los Cuernos, which smuggles migrants into the United States. 4 of the individuals were sought by the United States due to their involvement in a 2021 deadly truck accident where 56 migrants died in southern Mexico. In December 2021, 56 predominantly Central American migrants were killed when the truck they were traveling in crashed on a sharp curve near the Mexican city of Tuxtla Gutierrez. This accident is considered one of the deadliest involving migrants who routinely risk their lives in attempts to reach the United States. The Canlawan volcano in the central Philippines erupted yesterday evening, prompting evacuation of about 87,000 residents from 4 surrounding villages. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology informed that the eruption occurred for almost 4 minutes. A volcano in the central Philippines erupted for a second time this year, prompting emergency evacuations after it spewed a huge column of ash into the sky. An active volcano straddling the Southeast Asian country sent an ash cloud up to 4,000 meters. The institute raised the alert level to 3 on a scale of 5, warning that a magmatic eruption has begun that may progress to further explosive eruptions. Residents living within a 6-kilometer radius of the volcano summit are advised to evacuate. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology predicts a larger eruption may occur in the near future. The Canlawan volcano last erupted in June this year, which straddles the provinces of Negros Oriental and Negros Occidental on the island of Negros. Is one of the country's most active volcanoes. In sports, Malaysia and Vietnam drawn in the same group for Asian Cup qualifier. Stay with us. Starting off our sports segment this afternoon, Vietnam posed the biggest threat to Malaysia's mission of qualifying for the 2027 Asian Cup after both teams were drawn together in Group F for the tournament's third round qualifiers, scheduled to begin next March. The draw conducted at AFC House in Bukit Jalil also placed Nepal and Laos in the same group. Only the top team from each group will secure a spot in the 2027 Asian Cup. Vietnam are currently experiencing a slump, recording 9 losses, 1 win and 1 draw in all competitions this year. Head-to-head records between Malaysia and Vietnam showed that the Harimau Malaya struggled with 7 losses and 1 draw in their last 8 encounters since 2016. The national team's last victory over Vietnam was in December 2014. Malaysia missed the chance to secure an early berth for the 2027 Asian Cup after faltering in the second round of the 2026 World Cup 2027 Asian Cup qualifiers in June. Meanwhile, Thailand has been drawn with Turkmenistan, Taiwan and Sri Lanka in Group D, while India face Hong Kong, Singapore and Bangladesh in Group C. The group stage of the third round qualifiers will be played on a home and away basis. The 2027 Asian Cup is scheduled to take place in Saudi Arabia. Vietnam are ranked 116 in the world, while Malaysia are 132nd, Nepal 175th and Laos 186. In the meantime, Asia Football Confederation Secretary General Datuk Sri Winsor Paul John said that the Syria Football Association is stable. However, he said that there might be changes in terms of logo, flag and national anthem following the political development in the country. He further noted that there should not be any problem or obstacle for SFA and the administration of football in the country will continue as usual. SFA administration is currently being led by officials appointed through Congress. Datuk Sri Winsor, however, said that Syria could not host any international fixtures for now. Morocco will realise its dream of organising a World Cup after several unsuccessful attempts after the country was designated as a co-host for the 2030 edition. As a future co-organiser of the World Cup alongside Spain and Portugal, the kingdom has shown great perseverance. It was the first African country to bid for the 1994 edition but faced multiple failures, including losing the 2010 World Cup bid to South Africa, a heartbreaking setback at the time. These 3 decades of frustration will officially come to an end on Wednesday when the International Federation FIFA approved the joint bid of 3 countries. With a population of 38 million, Morocco recorded a 2.8% growth rate and a 13.6% unemployment rate through the third quarter of 2024. Looking ahead to the 2030 World Cup, Rabat has ambitious plans, including the expansion and renovation of airports in the 6 host cities, strengthening road infrastructure, and developing hotel and commercial infrastructures. Saudi Arabia's bid to host the 2034 World Cup is expected to be ratified at a FIFA Extraordinary Congress on Wednesday. The Gulf state was the only football association to present a bid to host the tournament before the deadline closed. FIFA had invited bids from Asia and Oceania for the tournament by 31 October, and Saudi Arabia announced it would bid only minutes after the announcement on 4th October. Saudi have also talked about potentially bidding for the 2035 Women's World Cup.
I think, Ian, there's been 12 World Cups in Europe, 5 World Cups in South America. There's been a World Cup in Africa and only 2 in Asia. I think this is a region that is very much hungry for more, to do more in football. And Saudi Arabia is at the very centre, the epicenter of all of this. The passion we have for the game, but also the love we have for the game. It's a different proposition. What Saudi Arabia is today is a different baseline to any other country.
In November, the country also unveiled its design plans for the King Salman Stadium, a 92,000 capacity facility in Riyadh set to be showpiece for the 2034 World Cup. Liverpool forward Diogo Jota returned to training on Monday as the squad prepared for its Champions League match against Kerana. Jota hasn't featured for Liverpool since being forced off the pitch with a rib injury in a Premier League fixture against Chelsea on 20th October. A win for Arne Slot's team will mean they are just 1 point away from qualifying for the last 16 of the competition, which is being played in a new format this season. Some members of the youth squad joined in the session, including 16-year-old forward Rio Nugamoha, who arrived at Anfield from Chelsea in the summer. Liverpool have won all 5 of the Champions League games this season. Players like Ryan Gravenberch, who has played every match for Liverpool in the Champions League this season, have had an extended period of recovery ahead of this fixture after the Merseyside derby was postponed. Moving on to the Champions League, Bayern Munich, already without striker Harry Kane, will have to do without two other key players, Kingsley Coman and Alphonso Davies, for an unspecified period due to injuries. Examinations show that both players suffered muscle strains in the left hamstring during Saturday's win over Eindhoven. Coman, a 28-year-old French international winger, came on as a second-half substitute before leaving the pitch with a knock just before the end of the game. Davies, a Canadian international fullback, finished the match. Top scorer Kane missed Saturday's game with a right thigh injury. Bayern face a potentially pivotal Champions League match against Shakhtar Donetsk in Gelsenkirchen, Germany on Tuesday. Only the top 8 finishers qualifying directly for the knockout rounds. Bayern are 13 in the first round table. Bayern are unbeaten in the Bundesliga after 13 rounds but were knocked out of the German Cup at home on 3rd December by last season double winner Bayern Leverkusen. And that wraps up our bulletin this afternoon. In our top story today, Syrian Prime Minister agrees to hand over power to Syrian Salvation Government. Do join us again this evening on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM at 8:30 p.m. for more news. Alternatively, you can always stream us live on RTM Click website or mobile app. Till then, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Salih Samsudin. May you have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.